In every love story, we expect happiness, trust, and a future filled with promises. But sometimes, behind the smiles and vows, lies betrayal, obsession, and danger. This is the tragic story of Ania Kaminski, a woman whose marriage, once built on love, spiraled into fear and ultimately ended in murder. This case reveals how toxic relationships can turn deadly when secrets, control, and violence overshadow love. At first glance, the life of Ania Kaminski seemed like the beginning of a beautiful love story. Friends described her as a warm and ambitious woman, someone who believed deeply in the values of family and loyalty. When she married, she embraced the role of wife with sincerity, envisioning a stable home where she and her husband could build their dreams together. To the outside world, their marriage appeared picture-perfect. Smiling photographs on vacations, cheerful appearances at gatherings, and the image of two people who had chosen each other for life. But behind the closed doors of their home, a different reality existed. The foundation of their marriage wasn't built on mutual respect. It was built on control. From the start, Ania's husband displayed subtle behaviors that were brushed off as protectiveness. He constantly checked on her whereabouts, questioned her friendships, and wanted to control how she spent her time. Like many victims of manipulation, Ania believed this behavior was simply an expression of love. Slowly, however, what she thought was affection began to reveal itself as dominance. The early days of her marriage were a warning sign of what was to come, but Ania, like so many others, hoped that things would change. She believed in the vows she had taken, believing that patience and love could heal whatever cracks were forming. Unfortunately, her loyalty would become one of the very chains that bound her to tragedy. Over time, Ania's marriage began to show darker shades. The charming husband that others saw was very different from the man she lived with daily. His jealousy grew stronger, his words sharper, and his control more suffocating. He resented her independence and wanted her world to revolve around him alone. Ania's friends noticed subtle changes. She grew quieter, less eager to spend time outside the home, and often made excuses when invited out. In private, she confided in a close friend that she felt trapped. She described walking on eggshells around her husband, never knowing what small action might ignite his anger. The relationship had become a prison, one without visible bars, but with chains just as strong. Financial control, emotional manipulation, and isolation are hallmarks of abusive relationships. Ania's life reflected this cycle. Her husband would belittle her, then apologize, promising to change. He would shower her with gifts or affection after an episode of rage, creating a confusing mix of love and fear. This cycle, known as the honeymoon phase in abuse psychology, kept her tethered to the hope that he could be the man she had once loved. What no one realized was that beneath the surface, the situation was becoming increasingly volatile. Ania's growing desire for freedom clashed with her husband's obsession with control. And when control is threatened, abusers often turn to the most extreme measure: violence. By the time Ania began seriously considering separation, her marriage had become unbearable. She was emotionally drained, physically fearful, and mentally exhausted. To her, leaving was not just about reclaiming her life. It was about survival. But leaving an abusive partner is one of the most dangerous decisions a victim can make. Her husband sensed the shift. The thought of losing her, of losing the dominance he had established, was intolerable. He became more unpredictable, swinging from moments of forced charm to terrifying rage. For abusers, control is everything. And when that control is slipping away, desperation pushes them into dangerous territory. Ania began making small steps toward independence, reaching out to family, quietly planning her exit. But her husband was always watching. The tension in the house grew unbearable, each argument more heated than the last. To outsiders, it may have looked like a struggling marriage, but to Ania, it felt like being caught in a storm with no escape. This was the breaking point, the moment where the scales tipped irreversibly. Ania was determined to escape the life that suffocated her, while her husband was equally determined to ensure that if he couldn't have her, no one else would. The final act of this tragic story came suddenly, but it was the result of years of escalating tension. In an act of cold-blooded violence, Ania's husband murdered her. What began as a marriage filled with dreams had now ended in horror. The crime shocked the community. Neighbors who had seen the couple smiling in public struggled to comprehend how such brutality could exist behind closed doors. The media covered the story extensively, describing the chilling transformation of a husband into a killer. What many people failed to realize, however, is that cases like Ania's are not isolated incidents. Domestic violence is one of the most common yet hidden causes of homicide worldwide. Ania's murder was not just a personal tragedy, it was a systemic one. It revealed how the warning signs of abuse often go unnoticed or ignored until it is too late. Her story highlighted the grim reality that home, the place meant to be safest, can sometimes become the most dangerous place of all. The aftermath of Ania's murder left an unhealable scar on her family and friends. Her loved ones were left grieving not only the loss of a daughter, sister, and friend, but also the violent way in which her life was taken. They remembered her as a woman full of warmth, kindness, and resilience. A woman who deserved more than to be reduced to a victim of her husband's rage. Her death sparked important conversations about domestic violence. Advocates pointed to her story as an urgent reminder of the need for awareness, education, and protection for victims of abuse. Laws and organizations emphasize the importance of recognizing red flags, controlling behavior, isolation, jealousy, and cycles of emotional manipulation. These signs, though often minimized, are precursors to violence. Today, Ania's story serves as both a tragedy and a warning. It underscores the importance of supporting those trapped in abusive relationships and breaking the silence that keeps them hidden. While justice was served in the courtroom, no sentence could undo the pain or bring Ania back. Yet her legacy continues, as her story helps others recognize the dangers of abusive love before it's too late.